So when it comes to creating a positive culture in a church, I would tell you that there is nothing more important than that. You can be a great preacher. You can have all sorts of knowledge in your head about the Bible. But if we don't develop the people skills, if we don't learn to work through the issues that come about in every church and create a positive culture, none of that will matter. All of us know wonderful pastors who ended up moving on to another appointment asking why. I preached good sermons. I had the biblical knowledge. Yes, we did, but somehow along the way we've got to learn to meet people, to deal with them, and to create an atmosphere, as Cody was talking about, that is positive and constructive. Now, culture is an interesting word, and we toss it about. I would offer a bit of a definition to you this morning and say that culture is the DNA of an organization. It's the thing that makes it tick. It's the unspoken beliefs and mores that are embraced by a congregation or an organization. It's the energy field that kind of floats around the group that helps us understand how to see, how to act, how to think in the world in which we live. And the first point that I would make to you about culture is that you have the power. As a pastor, you'll find some things that you don't have the power over. You'll have to collaborate with lots of folks, but you have the power to affect culture. And so I would encourage you to be very intentional about reaching into your people, about reaching into your group in non-threatening, in non-painful ways, and establishing what it is that you're trying to accomplish. If you believe in joy, then work to infiltrate your congregation with joy. David Cottrell has written a book called Monday Morning Leadership, and in one of his chapters, he talks about the difference between drivers and passengers. All of us have been passengers. If you're a passenger, you can look out the window, you can play with the knobs on the radio, you can think about other things. But when you become the driver, you have to apply yourself to the issues at hand. And all of us were members of a church years ago. And if you're a member, you're like a passenger. Oh, well, maybe I'm engaged and maybe I'm not. But when you become the pastor, or when you become on staff at a church, you are a driver. And I don't mean a controller, but I mean that you are a person that is now responsible. And you've got to see what's going on and pay attention to what's going on and apply yourself to what's going on. You've got to see the problems and work to resolve them. This is all part of creating a positive culture. You have this power. I would encourage you, as you think about creating a culture, to do all the good that you can. All of us have had negative experiences, things that hurt us along the way. I remember those. I remember a pastor that I worked for when I was in seminary who enjoyed publicly humiliating me. And I cannot tell you the number of times that he would call me down in front of the whole church family during worship and tell them what I was doing wrong. And what I learned from that is, I'm never going to do that to someone else. And so as you step into your congregation, the negative things that happened to you in the past, you can turn them around and make positives out of them. My children are just starting in the workforce, and they've had all sorts of jobs as teenagers and now in their 20s, and they've had painful things happen to them. And sometimes the best thing you can learn from a painful thing that happened to you is, I will never do that to someone else. I tell my kids, one day you will manage people, and when you do, remember this, and don't ever do to them what happened to you. Sometimes people expect a negative reaction out of you in a negative time, and one of the most constructive things that you can do is to just slide in with something positive and not be vindictive and begin to set a new tone. I would say to you that if you don't work to create the culture in your church, somebody else is going to do it. And every church has whiny people, unhappy, dysfunctional, broken people. Maybe they've set the culture in your church for years. If you don't step up and try to change that, they are glad to continue their work from the past. I'll tell you a story. When I was in Princeton, we had about 80 people on Sunday morning, and there was a woman. I'm sure she's not living anymore, so her name was Fern. And she was unhappy about everything that happened at the church. I don't know why. Maybe she was just unhappy. But every time we had any kind of a meeting, she was always there and always negative and always unhappy. And I don't know about you, but those things, they weigh me down, because inside of me there's this kind of people pleaser thing that wants everybody to be happy. And after about a year, it was just driving me crazy, and I couldn't take it anymore. And so I called her up and I said, "Fern, are you home?" "Yes." "Well, this is Pastor Jeff, and I'd like to come by." "Oh, okay." And I went to her house, and I knocked on the door. She let me in, and we sat down in her living room about 6 feet away from each other, and I said to her, "Fern, I'm so glad to be your pastor. I love you so much. I'm so pleased to be at this church with you and all these folks. Fern, I just have to tell you, I don't understand, but it seems to me that there's always something that you struggle with. And I so much want you to know that I deeply love you and need you." And she started to cry. And that moment changed her participation with that church. So I would encourage you, don't let the negative voices carry the day. I could also tell you a few stories about some negative voices that I tried to help, and they had some choice words for me. So you can't fix them all, but you can never fix them if you don't try. So step in and do everything you can. I would always also encourage you to be patient. District superintendent years and years ago said to me, "Don't change anything for the first year." And I can remember thinking, "What? Are you crazy? I know what to do. I'm a seminary graduate. I've got this. I'm going to straighten this church out." Well, I don't know that don't change anything for a year is the best advice, but pick your times and move slowly. Sometimes, even if you're doing the right things, if you're doing them too fast, the angst of change will just eat somebody's lunch. So measure and take your time. A book that's really helpful in helping pastors understand that is a book by William Bridges called Managing Transitions. And so I encourage you to get that if you see lots of changes in your church that you have to deal with. Second thing, building a positive culture in a church. What is your mission, and what is the church's mission? At Woods Chapel, our mission statement is connecting people to Jesus Christ. I like that because I think it directs our hearts toward the Savior, but I also like it because it's generic enough that there are no 4 points that comes with it. There's no 4 spiritual laws that say, this is exactly how you get connected, but it drives our discussions, and it reminds us that ultimately this is what we are about. If you're a United Methodist, we have a mission statement as a Methodist, making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. I encourage churches when I get a chance to talk to them, don't make a mission statement that's really greatly different than that. That in and of itself is enough of a mission statement. But whatever your mission statement is, find it, hold it up to your folks, and remind them this is what we are about. If we don't hold up our mission and our mission statement and gather people and rally them around that, there are hundreds of things that will take over. What John Ortberg calls shadow mission, unmission, all sort of gazillions of things in your church that become the main thing. And many of them are important things. Taking care of a historic building can become the mission of a congregation. A preschool or a daycare can become the mission of a congregation. Keeping an ineffective employee employed because they've been our secretary for 25 years can become part of the mission of a congregation. Some of those are important, some of them are not, but none of them are the main thing. All of those are sidebar things that may need to be a part of the life of the church, but they can't be allowed to take over. No sacred cow should be allowed to take the place of our mission of inviting people to find faith in Christ. I would encourage you, as you think about mission, to find the folks in your church that you can invite to join you along the way. Some of your folks won't get what you're doing. Some of your folks will never learn the mission statement, but you'll find some that do and some that will. Spend your time with them. You will raise the bar. You will enculturate your folks a little bit at a time by finding the ones that do get it and spending the time with them. Encourage them, mentor them, deploy them. I would encourage you in your church to learn and to teach the people that we do what we do because of our mission, not because Jeff said, not because the pastor said. Your people are going to say, well, the pastor wants us to do blah, 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 okay? When you hear that, nip that in the bud. Nothing should happen at your church because the pastor said. Sometimes the pastor's wrong. Sometimes our staff come to me and they say, Jeff, you got this one wrong. And I say, okay, explain to me how I'm wrong based on our mission. And you know, if they're right, if the mission is different than the direction I'm going, I try to listen to them and we go that way. I want to teach our staff and our leaders, when they're out talking to folks, to explain to them we're doing what we're doing because this is our mission. Pastors come and pastors go, but the mission should always be there. One of my favorite books is a book that we got off the bishop's reading list called The Starfish and the Spider by Ori Braffman. And it talks about two leadership styles. The spider style, well, there's one head and lots of legs, and the legs don't know what to do unless the head tells it. And the legs are constantly asking, what should we do? What should we do? And of course, if you squish the head, the legs are lost and the organism dies. That's how some churches operate. Let's go ask the pastor what to do. Let's go find out what our marching orders are. And it's very easy for us as human beings to fall into that role of being that leader and being that person in control. The starfish is a little different. You know, if you cut a starfish in half, it doesn't die. You get two starfish. Now, they're kind of ugly, but you get two starfish because the DNA, the vital organs of the starfish are replicated in every leg and enough of the center. You could actually carve it up into several different parts, and that leg and part of that center would continue to live. Imagine a church where every one of your leaders gets what you're doing and is motivated by the mission, and they're out doing what we ought to be doing because it's the right thing, not because you said. So infiltrating your folks with the mission is a very important thing. Number 3, to build a positive culture in your church. And this should go without saying, but make good decisions. Don't make bad decisions. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. How many stories have we heard about pastors who had a great opportunity, and every time the district superintendent calls you for an appointment, it'll be a great opportunity, right? We start out with these great opportunities, and you hear a story of how someone shot themselves in the foot. Sometime after I left Princeton, well, let me back up and say something else about Princeton. I had never been to a town before where the buildings on the town square were falling in. And when I went up there to visit that town, I knew that's where we were going. I had my wife with me. We were very young. I saw the town square, and I was in shock. I met wonderful people, but when I left that town and we were driving down 65 to go home, I cried, thinking about taking my family to North Missouri, rural North Missouri. Well, we were there 3 years, and I just forced myself to engage and look past the setting and the decline and to care about the people, and we had a wonderful time there. But someone that followed me a few appointments later stood up in that pulpit in the Princeton church and said, I just need to let you all know that we didn't want to come to North Missouri. This wasn't the appointment that we wanted. Now, you know what they just did? They announced effectively the end of their ministry in that setting. They just told those people, I don't care about you, and I'm not interested in engaging with you. Another thing that I hear pastors say from time to time, and I just cringe. I'm the pastor, and as long as I'm the pastor, it's going to go just like this. And I think, wow, is this how we win people? There are so many things that a pastor can do to shoot himself or herself in the foot, and you'll wonder a few months into the thing, what happened? Well, you have a self-inflicted wound. A friend of mine who's a consultant talks about the reservoir of goodwill, and we have a water tower somewhere. There it is. When you go to a new appointment, you have the honeymoon. That is your reservoir of goodwill. The people give you the benefit of the doubt because you're the new person. And what I want you to understand is every time you make a good decision, your reservoir fills up a little more full. If you keep making good decisions, after a while when something comes up, people will just say, well, let's ask the pastor. They've made so many good decisions. Let's see what they think. You can build your reservoir of goodwill by spending time with people, by caring about them, and by making good decisions. On the other hand, you make one or two bad decisions, and all of a sudden, your reservoir is dry, and everyone will begin questioning and complaining. So building a positive culture hinges in a very important way on the kind of decisions that you make. One of the hardest things for us to do as human beings is to see our own dysfunction and get it out of the way. But if you can find the parts of your personality that are annoying or power hungry or the things that tend to drive people away, identify them and learn to work to get past those things. Make good decisions. Number 4, building a positive culture is about surrounding yourself with the best people, gathering people around you that you can train and mentor. I've heard a lot of pastors talk about their plans for developing leadership, and they're going to teach. They're going to grab some people and read these books with them and take them through a 6-month training process. And I've heard a lot of great stories about these great plans that folks have to develop leaders. And at the end of the day, when I listen to them, every one of them says, it didn't turn out as well as we thought. And I will tell you why, is to me, in my mind, developing leaders is not about a program. It's about investing in the people that you think can get it. Donna Nichols, I think you are the person that said this in PLD a few years ago. What we need in the church are horse whisperers, pastors that can find the people that they think they can reach and get a hold of them. The horse whisperer gets a hold of that wild horse and says, okay, hang on. Hold steady, boy, hold steady. The horse whisperer calms the horse and reminds the horse of who it is and what it's about. And at the end of the day, that horse is pulling a wagon again. Surround yourself with people that you can mentor and train and help, people that will listen to you. We learned over the years that you can't put just any warm body on a committee. Years and years ago, there were a lot of factions and painful factions in our church. And as we went into nominations, for some reason, I decided it'd be a really good idea to put on staff parish 3 from this group, 3 from that group, and 3 from the other group. It was the most miserable year that I have ever had as a pastor because all those people did was fight. We've also learned over the years that there are people that see themselves as leaders that are caustic. There are people that go to church here that love Jeff, that think Jeff is just wonderful. But you get them in a meeting, and they're terrible. They're painful. They will cut your arm off if you say anything bad about the church. And so over the years, we stopped inviting those people to be on our committees. In fact, over the years, we've come up with a list of qualifications to be nominated. And when you go into nominations, I thank the gods of Methodism that the pastor is in charge of that meeting. This is a chance for you to shape the future. And it's very difficult when you have members of your lay leadership team or nominations team, whatever you call that, and they want to bring people to the table that don't get it. Well, take a preemptive strike and let all of the folks on the nominations team know, here are some qualifications. Don't bring anybody to the table that doesn't meet these qualifications. Here are ours. Number one, they must be an active member. Number two, they must be highly committed to the mission of our church. Is this someone that talks about the church and kind of gets it? Number three, no axe to grind, no hidden agenda. How many people does that set off immediately? Number four, they must play well with others. I don't care if the folks on our committees agree with me. It's not about agreeing with me. The people we learn from are the people that are different from us. But they have to play well with others. They can't create a caustic environment. Must be committed to prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. Spiritually engaged in the life of the church, a joyful, positive attitude. It's starting to narrow down the number of folks that are available to serve. Attending worship regularly. To me, if somebody comes to church once a month, that does not qualify them to sit on the board of trustees. And never put anybody on a team so that they can become more involved in the life of the church. The people that should be leading your church are the people that love your church and are committed to your mission. Under number 5, also proportional giving and hands-on serving. If you let your nominations team know ahead of time, these are the people that you're looking for, they'll recognize that there are a number of folks whose names they should not be bringing up. And it's difficult sometimes, and there are always folks that get on teams that you kind of have to deal with. But take that initial step to make a preemptive strike to get healthy people in places of leadership. One of my favorite quotes is this: spiritually developed people are those who have learned to give up their comfort and personal preference for the sake of the mission. Now, I read that somewhere. It's not original to me. None of this stuff is original to us. We've collected it from a lot of different places. But spirituality is not based on how often someone's in church or how many Sunday school classes they go to or how many mission trips they've gone on, though all that might be helpful. True spirituality begins when I learn to set aside my personal preference, my comfort, for the sake of the mission. When you find those people, these are people that are willing to take up their cross for the sake of your church, for the sake of Christ. And those are people that we lift up and want to give opportunity. Number 5, building trust. Oh, so very important for a pastor to create relationships with people that are healthy. I love to tell pastors that the bishop cannot make you someone's pastor. You being appointed to First Church wherever does not make you the pastor of those people. You having a diploma, you having a certificate, you having a license, you having a robe, none of those things make you someone's pastor. You can have your name painted on the sign. That doesn't make you someone's pastor. We used to joke in Princeton that they were going to put my name on the sign with a tacky note, right? Just so if they wanted to, they could rip it off. What makes you someone's pastor? They will tell you when you are their pastor. When you have engaged with them, when you have walked through hell with them, when you have loved them, they will put their arms around you and they will call you pastor. Being a pastor is not something you can take to yourself. No credentials give that to you. It is something that happens as you spend the time with the people in the trenches, loving them, caring for them, even walking through conflict in ways that are constructive. Building trust is vitally important if we are going to build a positive culture. Every church has had difficult people. I do struggle, though, when I hear pastors talk about, that church, those are just bad people. Really? Is that real? Maybe there's a case or two of that in the state. I don't know. But most of what I've found when I've gone places is that there were people, some like me, some different than me, and most of them just wanted to be loved. We fell onto something here it's kind of interesting, actually. If you are constantly telling people they need to do better and something's wrong with them, they're going to feel like you're the parent and they're the child. And they're going to always feel a stress in your relationship. Try this sometime. Stand up in front of them and tell them, you are the best people a pastor could have. I am so pleased with the way you are engaging in mission. I am so glad to be here, to be in ministry with you. I am the most fortunate pastor that I know. There is something that will rise up out of them, and they want to love you. They want to hear that. They want to be that people. And I don't know what I was doing before, but I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago I started telling our folks that, and they started behaving better. Some of them that were nasty and unhappy stopped being nasty and unhappy. I don't know if something else was being said behind the scenes. You know, when you start to enculturate people, you're not the only voice for health. There are other people that will put their arms around that broken, unhappy person and say, now, our pastor just told us how wonderful we are. Is this really who you want to be right now? Tell them they are wonderful. Tell them you love them. Even if there's some that you are struggling with, there are always going to be folks that you struggle with. I think churches are known for drawing lines. You're in, you're out, you're going to heaven, you're not. You're elect, you're not. You're elect to heaven, you're elect to hell. You're the good, you're the bad, you're the right, you're the wrong. I'm voting for this person and the rest of you are nuts. If you want to gain the trust of people, learn how to draw circles that take people in. People that are like you, people that are different from you, and insist that your people do this. There are not very many times at our church that I will go to the mat and get in somebody's face. But when I see people excluding other people, there's something inside of me that just gets my dander up, and I will go to them and I say, you know what? That person is valuable too. I know they don't see the world the same way you do. I know that they don't value the same things that you do, but all of us are on the same team. I have this idea that in heaven, God and His sense of humor, you know, there's a lot of stories about this banquet in heaven, and maybe you've seen that picture with a really long banquet table that goes on into infinity. I just believe that God in His sense of humor is going to set across the table from you and me people that are different from us, people that saw the world differently. And I tell our folks, don't be so hard on that person that's different from you. They may be sitting across you at the banquet table, and you'll say, how did you get here? And they'll say, well, I trusted in Christ for salvation. But I was wanting to ask the same question. How did you get here? So many of the things that we think are important, that we fracture and hurt one another over in this life, I believe just fall away as we start rising up toward the pearly gates. So as a pastor, find ways to draw less lines and draw more circles. There's a personal skill that pastors must learn to build trust with people, and that is get close to them and look them in the eye. Get close to them and look them in the eye. We've had a lot of training in boundaries. You got to be careful how you touch people, but there is a power of putting your hand on someone's shoulder or reaching out and taking their hand, and it lets them know that I am a human being. I am someone that cares for you. It breaks the ice. It's almost like more than our hands touch. Our souls begin to touch. All of these things about connecting to people. If you don't know how to do these things, learn how to do these things. I don't know how a pastor is successful without being able to step in and build that relationship. And it's totally fine to recognize that there are skills I don't have. All of us know of skills that we need that we don't have. Well, those are the ones we ought to be working on. Those are the ones that make us more effective. Most pastors don't have all the tools that it takes. There are things that we have to work on. If this is one for you, the personal skill, the personal touch, the message of I care for you, learn how to do that, because without that, I don't know how we make it. Number 6, share power, foster a team spirit. It's not about who's in charge. There's a lot of great books about leadership and fostering a team spirit. One of them is called The Flight of the Buffalo. It's kind of a long book, but it condenses down into two really great stories. The one of them is, if you've ever watched a buffalo herd, they follow the lead buffalo. And when the lead buffalo takes off, everyone follows, and there's this great running stampede. Years ago when I lived in Oklahoma, I used to ride my motorcycle up into the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge, and they had herds of buffalo up there. And if they got running your direction, you really needed to get out of the way because of a very powerful thing. But if you think back to the 1800s, when the whites were trying to starve the Indians by killing the buffalo, they didn't have to kill all the buffalo. They just found the lead buffalo, and they killed that one. And the rest of them just stood around because they didn't know what to do. And they got shot and were massacred because the one leader wasn't leading. Belasco in his book says, as an organization, is that how you want it to go? Or is there another option? And the other option he holds up is an illustration that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. It's the concept of geese in flight. And there's this long V of geese. By the way, you know why when geese are in flight in the form of a V, one side is usually longer than the other? Do you know why that is? There's more geese on that side? Sorry. But as the story goes, one goose will be in the lead until that goose gets tired. And then that goose falls back and someone else takes the lead. Find people that can lead and let them do it. In a smaller church, everything is going to come across your desk. And as long as everything has to come across your desk, you're going to limit what can happen in your congregation. Find people that can do it and let them lead. I encourage you as you're dealing with others, as you are sharing power with others, to learn to apologize when you're wrong. Sometimes people in charge, and ultimately you are in charge, aren't very good at apologizing. But if you see that you're wrong, it is very powerful to sit down with someone and say, I just want you to know that I missed the boat on this. Even if it's a small thing. I've got a woman that goes to church here that's pushing on a lot of our landscape projects. And she and I banter all the time, and we have a wonderful relationship. But something wasn't happening in quite the way I wanted it to happen, and for some reason this is something that I've been really interested in. And she came in last week, and I caught her just inside the door. And I said, Johnny, I need to know when this is going to happen. It's not enough to just know that this company is going to come plant these trees. I want a date. Okay? Now, that sound a little crazy to you? Yeah, we got a little bit of craziness, all of us, right? I don't want to go through and find out all of a sudden it's winter and this company didn't plant the trees. And so I'm engaging my friend Johnny about this right after she's walked in the door. And we had a nice talk, and I walked away, and I realized later that although this wasn't a big thing, it was the wrong time and the wrong place, and I was just a little bit too excited about that. And why? Well, because I had something else going on that was bothering me. Isn't that usually how it works? You got something else that's bothering you, and so you start acting out in other places. So the next thing, once I realized that, I'm looking for a time to find Johnny and the person that was with her and apologize for the fact that I stopped her and got in the middle of her grill right then. Now, did I need to do that? No, not for her. But when you are willing to apologize to people, again, it's a message that says, I'm not more important than you are. I deeply care about who you are. And if we're going to have people join us and be a part of our team and share this ministry together, we have to find ways to kind of get ourselves out of the way and allow them to do the things that they are doing. One of my favorite quotes, and this is a little counterintuitive because a lot of times people think of leaders as those who are out in front, those who lead. This is from James O'Toole's book, Leading Change. He writes about what I call the invisible leader, the person that's getting it done who isn't out in the forefront. A leader is best when people barely know that he or she exists. A leader is not so good when people obey and acclaim him or her. A leader is worse when they despise him or her, fail to honor people, they will fail to honor you. But of a good leader who talks little, when their work is done, their aim fulfilled, all around will say, "We did this by ourselves." Imagine creating a culture where you're helping people do what needs to be done in such a way that they are finding the enjoyment and taking the credit, and they don't even need to point to you. My wife and I have been raising 3 children. They're 21, 23, 25. They're on top of the world. They have the world by the tail. They're in large and in charge. They think they got it going on. They do. Well, at some point in their life, they'll look back and see and understand all that their parents did for them. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is to learn to be the wind beneath someone else's wings. And I know you're all tired of that song, aren't we all? But the sense of leading without having to be in front. Empowering, strengthening, encouraging, deploying, infusing people with ideas and hope without me having to be out in the limelight all the time.